this show will never have the LeBron versus Jordan debate. I've said that in previous episodes, and this weekend has been just a glaring and annoying reminder for why. I don't know if you saw, but there's this we done with the 90s trend on the internet, I guess. It started on TikTok. I don't be on TikTok like that, but the LeBron and Jordan debate just kind of ruined basketball discourse in general. And I was thinking about it. Now we have kids who grew up only seeing that as NBA coverage. So and I don't blame them for being frustrated, because if I'm like, for example, we grew up idolizing Dwayne Wade. So if the whole time Dwayne Wade was coming up, there was a Dwayne Wade versus this old player debate, and it was just getting in the way of us enjoying Dwayne Wade, we'd be annoyed by that 100%. But both sides, like I've said in previous episodes, they just end up lying on each other the whole time. And it's not a good debate. It's not a good conversation. So this trend itself has just produced some of the worst basketball takes I've seen in my life. To explain what the trend is, basically, from an unbiased standpoint, it's younger people, the 19, 20, 21 age range or whatever it is, they'll go back, they'll actually watch old games, which I respect them for doing, and I appreciate that, because, hey, people tell them you need to watch these games, but the mistakes they're making is they're watching the game from a perspective of looking for things that are bad, and you're going to find that in basketball in every game, in every era. It's a very up and down game, and they're taking these stretches of bad basketball. And a lot of these games I've seen already, and it's just, that's not a great way to look at it. But again, if I grow up idolizing LeBron James and loving LeBron James, and you're trying to convince me my whole life that he's not that good because the players before were better or whatever it is, I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to be frustrated with it. But again, either side, like, if you're trying to convince people LeBron James is bad at basketball, you're just, it's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. If you try to convince people Michael Jordan's not that good at basketball, you're being ridiculous. I just don't understand how we got here. Well, at least, and we're new to considering ourselves basketball media, NBA media, or whatever it is, even though we've been with Heat. Well, I left Miami Heat, but we were there I was there 2 years. You're in your fourth year, I believe, but we're a newer platform. And so we don't have the responsibility of causing this, but I do think it's the NBA media's fault, because there's been so many great players to be able to celebrate, and we didn't grow up in an era where we were just out here shitting on players from before or new players. It was just, we think this player is good, this other side doesn't think they're that good. We'll have to debate, like, I remember best in the league debates more than GOAT debates. I remember there was a point in time where it was T-Mac or Kobe. It was, I don't know if anybody was competing with Shaq. That's a bad example, but it'll be just like stuff like that, where you'd have these two sides of the same era, but you still respected the people from before, and there was still an admiration for, that's when players were coming out of high school. And yeah, there were doubts about those players sometimes, but we had already seen KG, we had already seen Kobe, we had already seen T-Mac. Being a fan of basketball was just a lot more fun. And I think the NBA media just chasing after engagement kind of ruined it, where now I'm noticing a lot of fans, and we see it now with the younger players, and they'll have their Twitter Abbeys or whatever as their favorite player, and it's just allegiance to this player in this all-out war against everybody else. And it's just, I wish being a fan of basketball for the younger generation could just be all fun the way it was for us.
Yeah, totally. It's from an era of appreciation and love for the game and stuff, and now, like, it's kind of become I'm not blaming LeBron for this. Like, right. I 100% blame Skip Bayless for this, for making your brand off of being a hater, and that's how other people have tried to copy have tried to bite his flow word for word. and you see it, like, for LeBron, you see it pro LeBron, like Nick Wright does it the other way around, and just just that's how he talks about basketball. But the appreciation just for teams and players and stuff like that, like the actual love for the game, like you can find that as well, but it's not in the mainstream. It's not
Right.
in it's you got to search for the dunker spot or watch or listen to the low post
Or us.
or us, yeah. Or like listen to the team stuff, and even some of the team stuff like just becomes hating on other teams because they don't watch. But as far as like the national media goes, it doesn't get into it's always a hot take. You can't and it's also the free agency shit too that it gets into, that it's like you can't talk about Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs playing well on SportsCenter because 8 seconds later, the Stephen A is saying, "Oh, he might go to the Knicks."
Yeah,
and shit like that, and that's just not what we're talking. That's not what we want to hear. That's not what fans really want to talk about. Well, like diehards, I feel like the casual fan that's what engages them now, and that's the only thing that keeps them. And it's sad. It's sad. We're trying to change that. We're trying to turn that around. Eras are different eras. Like you cannot compare Dwayne Wade to John Havlicek.
Right.
It's a different ball game. You can't. The game was in black and white back then.
Yeah.
And pre-segregation, pre-ABA merger. Even now, like I talk to younger fans about when I used to coach high school basketball. I would tell I would tell them about like Udonis Haslem and how important he was in the 06 finals. You could make a strong case that he was the second or third best player on that 06 championship team in the finals. And people will look at his stats and like, 14 points a game. That's not that impressive, but like there's more to it. There's pace adjustment. The game was different. Styles were different. Like, we talked when we went to where we were talking about the 7 seconds or less, the Suns, they would be one of the worst offenses in basketball. They're one of the slowest basketball teams right now. It's just that's only 2 decades ago. And you want to go back further, and they were the team that set the standard. Now it's everybody plays that way. Everybody pushes that pace, and things are just way different. Like you have to compare context, and it's not excuse making. It's just realistic. You're talking about a completely different game of basketball, even 10 years ago.
Yeah, there was a point in time, and I did kind of want to get into like not necessarily specifically the clips I was seeing myself, but some of the stuff they were talking about in the clips, as far as the players back then not contesting 3-pointers. But that's because even with us, and we were born in the 90s, we grew up in the 2000s, but even still with us coming up playing, the 3-pointer was considered kind of a last resort shot up until really the Warriors. The Warriors kind of changed that for the most part. But for most teams and just coming up with whatever it is, the 3-pointer was the last resort shot. So you didn't really feel the need to contest it as much. And players didn't come up working on it. Yeah. And I think there's a debate and an argument about the skill level being better in this era. And I think you can say that in some senses and not in other senses. Like, for example, you have bigs who dribble and shoot now, and that's great. But all you switch a guard on them, and now they don't know how to take advantage of them because they don't have a post move. And I know like the post game, it's starting to come back with Jokic and with Embiid, and Şengün is real good in the post, but that used to be skill for a big, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because look, that post game, it's difficult. It's very difficult. There's a lot to master. It's a lot of footwork. It's a lot of that's just as much of a craft as in and out crossover behind the back, whatever it is, but it doesn't get viewed that way because it's slower. But you have the bigs who can do that stuff now and can't post up, and you have these 3-and-D guys who really don't shoot all that well, but they're empowered to shoot. And so the points are higher and it looks like it's better, but there's also a lot of stuff missing. The defense isn't as good as it used to be. And I understand if you look at clips and it looks like the defense was bad, it wasn't. We don't have to do that. But it's just their skill that improved and kind of went down in different directions. So I don't necessarily know if it's more skilled today. I think it's kind of more monotone today, actually, in a sense. And so I think if the skill now is more, it fits highlights more. So and it's more exciting and it's prettier if you have a 7-footer being able to cross somebody over than you would be with him being able to fake the spin inside, come back out up and under layup. Like it's not as pretty as what you see now. So I don't necessarily know if the skill is better or worse. I think it's the game is just totally different, like you've been saying. And so it's difficult to, and I understand if you're 19 years old and you're not, you didn't grow up on ESPN Classic, you didn't grow up watching even the 2000s teams, and you just it's jarring to you to see a team come up in transition and somebody has an open three and they don't take it.
Yeah.
You assume this person can't shoot, but it's like if he shoots that in 1996 or even in 2012, he's coming out the game because it's a totally different game back then. And so I'll say all that to say I'm glad we came up in an era where it was just respect for everybody. I remember the NBA Live 2003 commercial coming out, and the theme of it was Dr. J is in this game. You can use an ABA ball. I'm born in 92. Dr. J retired in the 80s, and I'm like mind blown. Like, man, I can use Dr. J in this game. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's I wish that continued, but I don't blame LeBron for that. I don't blame LeBron's fans for that. I don't blame younger NBA fans for that. It's 100% on the media. It's 100% on the media, and it's unfortunate because it's so bad for the game itself.
Damn you, Skip.
Welcome to another episode of Playoff File. I'm Kenny. First, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. But I got Frankie with me, no Lou today. But Frankie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Goddamn Heat. How about you?
I lost to the Wizards. That is tough, but that's what they get for being so arrogant for a team that's fighting to stay out of the play-in. But I'm good aside from that. To be completely honest with you, it's one of those going through the motions days again. I work on this thing kind of 24/7, and I sleep on weekends. Like I said last episode, I sleep 1 hour a night on weekdays because I'm always editing something. But aside from that, I'm doing great. But we're going to get right into the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves right now are tied for second in the West, 44-20. Unfortunately, Karl-Anthony Towns is out right now. But there was a face of the league conversation a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to get into that because the NBA has always had multiple faces, whether it's the 80s with Magic and Bird and Jordan, whether it's the 90s with Jordan. I think people forget how big of a deal Charles Barkley was at the time also. Mm-hmm. The 2000s, you had Kobe and Shaq. You also had Allen Iverson. The 2010s, you had LeBron and Steph. There's always multiple faces of the league, but I do think the player who's going to be the best player in the league in the future after the LeBron, KDs, and Stephs and all them retire, I think Anthony Edwards is going to take this fucking league over one day. I just watched Anthony Edwards roll his ankle on the first play of a game, come back in, drop 44, and get a game-saving block where he hit his head on the rim and his armpit on the backboard.
Crazy.
This, I don't like saying this kid who are not actual kids, but this man this season is averaging 26.3 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 5 assists on 46, 37, 84 splits. And that's not even what I'm most impressed by. He didn't come into the league as a defender, but he's locking shit up out there.
He's much improved on that end. I love Ant's like demeanor. Most of the time, he comes in with a lot of attitude and energy, and he plays a lot like he's having a lot of fun. He's fucking around a little bit but he trash talking but he's competitive. You could tell he comes from a football background and loves to compete and win. It's really unfortunate. Cat was having a really solid really good season. Shooting the ball really well, averaging 22 and 8.4, 3 assists, and they'll miss him badly. They don't have a lot of scoring talent.
Right.
They'll have to win a lot more on defense. This is time for like Nas Reed, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley to shoot a little bit more, be more aggressive. Their bench is going to be tested. It's gonna put a lot. They're hoping he can be back. According to Woj, they're hoping he can be back early Western Conference playoffs, but they'll definitely miss him. Defensively, they got to lock the fuck in and win on that end. But Ant's having a phenomenal season, and this is great for him because this is extra juice for him to be aggressive and keep improving and try to carry his team.
And I think Lou said in the previous episode, Ant just has that it factor where you watch him and it's like he puts the team on his back in a way to where like we're not losing this game. It's that I don't want to say because Kobe was a whole different animal from a different planet as far as that goes, and so was Jordan, Dwayne Wade, but it's that same. He's basically cut from that same cloth. And I'm looking at it. It's like he goes to a different level naturally when the team really needs him to try to get a win. And that's been just a huge factor in how good they've been this season. But the main thing that's really helped them be this good this season is the defense. I think they're still best defense in the league right now. I haven't looked at the actual numbers, but I'm watching these games and I'm seeing lineups with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, with Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. Last time we talked about the team, he was injured. He's back now. And we know what Rudy Gobert does on defense. We talk about him a whole lot on this show. And that's just tough to beat, man. That's tough to beat. I still think, even with as good as they've been this season, the Minnesota Timberwolves organization's reputation's kind of gotten away of them really getting the credit for how good they are. And so there's still a lot of speculation. And you know how people like to, this is a first round exit team, is a second round exit team, like getting the takes off, like we mentioned in the first segment, just trying to get the takes off. But I think any team that's built on defense has a real shot. And I understand like the Nuggets won last season. We're going to get into the Nuggets later, but I still think the foundation is defense. And this Minnesota Timberwolves team just flat out has it.
Yeah, you absolutely have to defend and get stops. I love that you mentioned Nickeil Alexander-Walker, one of my favorite defenders in the league. Just so pesky, lengthy, deflection, steals, like you name it. He's going to do it. He's going to be involved, and he's going to make a mess of things. But McDaniels is a fucking phenomenal defender, lengthy, versatile, moves so well on that end. And then Rudy, of course, is just one of the greatest defenders of all time. And they have like really high IQ vets. Like Mike Conley isn't the athlete he used to be, but he knows how to play the game. He's smarter, more efficient in his movements. Slow-mo is one of my favorite vets in the league since college. I love watching him play. So they have the talent. They're not going to blow you out of the water offensively, but defensively, they have a lot of talent, a lot of length, a lot of versatility. They can play big or small, and that's something that a lot of teams can't do. And they have a lot. Nas Reed, one of the most underrated players in the league, 100%. Could start for so many teams in the league, and he chose to come back, be a backup, and play with some really good players. He's one of the guys that I'm really expecting to pop with Cat's absence. He's so talented. I really think he could step up for them in this role.
Yeah, and because of his shooting, which I'm not going to sit here and say he's a good shooter. I am going to say he's a good shooter.
Shooting 41% from the season.
I don't know why I was about to try to like downplay him like that. He is a good shooter.
Hooper.
Handle is there, so he's able to play with Rudy Gobert in a way that people kind of questioned whether he would be able to, because in previous years he was just a defender, rebounder, scrappy, get it done type of guy. He came back this year with all this skill, and so he plays a decent amount of minutes with Rudy Gobert, and that's pretty scary to look at because you have Karl-Anthony Towns, who's one of the best bigs in the league. We talked about him in a previous episode and how he doesn't get the credit he deserves for how skilled he is, but you're just able to slot Nas Reed into some of those minutes. and you still have to deal with some of the same stuff with the shooting, with the handling, and with better defense than Cat. He's not a better player than Cat. I'm not saying that.
No, not at all.
But just he brings so much to the table into these lineups. And like you said, I think he's really going to pop with Cat out.
Yeah, for sure. And they have Monte Morris they picked up in the buy. I don't remember if they picked him up in a trade or a buyout, but whatever. He's a good solid backup vet. So him and Conley will get them ready. They've had a really fun season. I'm interested in them. I want to see them this stretch. I think this is great importance for them to grow. And we've seen a lot of times when a second or third player is out, teams kind of had to adjust and play differently. And sometimes that can really help them in the long run. We saw for Heat fans, we saw when Chris Bosh went out, things had to adjust. He came back, started shooting threes, and Dwayne and LeBron kind of found more chemistry because they didn't have to balance a third guy. They got to kind of learn how to play with each other, and that was for the better. So who knows? I'm not expecting it to come from Rudy, but he can get more involved in the pick and roll game. Defensively, we know what he's capable of, but the rest of the guys, this is their opportunity. You guys have been a great team all year. Fight your half game from the 1 seed all season in the West. The West has been a fucking bloodbath, this is great. I'm really interested in it. We're taping right now on Sunday night, but they just tipped off, and I'm really curious to check in on that game once we're done.
Yeah, and what you were saying, I do want to kind of touch on. That's what I always say about teams when one of the star players go down. And I don't bet. I'm not going to honestly start gambling until a gambling company wants to sponsor us or something. But that's the thing. I think what happens is a lot of times you see a star go out on a team, and people assume the team's supposed to lose now. And so not only with the betting, but just with fans and how could you lose to this team when this player wasn't playing? It's just that star player is important, but one is a lot more difficult to game plan for them because their main guy is out. So you kind of guessing in a sense. You don't have a whole lot of stuff to go off of. And two, it's the NBA. You could always make adjustments. Good teams are going to find ways to win. There's a guy on every roster I would assume, or I'd pretty much be willing to bet on if I were better, that they could easily not start into necessarily a star role, but they could put up very good numbers if they were asked to do it. And that's always been the case in the NBA. All these guys come from being the guy.
Yeah.
Wherever they were. They got to the NBA somehow, but the team's just asking them to do certain things. And even if it's not just scoring, we saw Andre Drummond last week grab 26 rebounds in the game. And we haven't seen that from him since the Detroit days. But he's not asked to do that. He's not asked to play that much that often. And so with the Timberwolves, I do think they're not going to fully slip without Cat. And that's not a slight to Cat, but it's just this team is so good and so deep that I just fully believe in them being able to stay afloat until he's back. And we're at the point in the season where we're hearing this player's out for season or this player's out until whatever, but it's
injuries off.
Weeks. Yeah, it's just a couple weeks.
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah.
It's scary with the meniscus, man. We've seen it firsthand with other guys. Robert Williams is one of the more recent guys that had that injury. But yeah, for sure. This is a great point in the season for them to get tested in a different way. And we'll see how they go from here. Let's get into the Nuggets, though. Yeah. The Nuggets, one of the best, reigning champs, one of the funnest offensives I've ever seen with Jokic, one of the most unique and talented players. And when it's all said and done, he's, I think, for sure going to be a top. I think top 20s even might be too low, which is crazy. But he's just an ultra supreme talent. Him and Aaron Gordon fit so perfectly next to each other. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., KCP. I feel like KCP, like not enough teams, blogs and media shout out KCP. Right. He is a phenomenal defender.
The ultimate role player.
Like he's a perfect glue guy. He's the fifth guy on a championship team. Guards the best perimeter player. Will shoot the three. Runs in transition. Like plays hard. Like scrappy player. I love the way he plays. I would give anything for my team to have KCP, a KCP level player. He just fits perfectly for them. They did a phenomenal job last year. Followed suit, another great season. They're competing really well. Offensively, still really good. Defensively, working on some things. I really like Christian Braun, really tough guy, second year player. Tough as nails. Not afraid of the moment, not afraid of the big shot. Like you can see why he's won championships on both levels.
Mm-hmm. And the defense, I understand they need to. I don't even want to say need to, but that's if you had to point a weakness out, that would probably be it. They just don't have a bunch of. Well, they do have a bunch of high level defenders, but they're kind of spread around. I'm not gonna like ignore Peyton Watson and KCP, Christian Brown, and all them, but the team is run on who I think is the best player in the league right now, and I actually don't even think there's much of an argument against it.
No,
Nikola Jokic right now, 26 points per game, 12.2 rebounds per game, 9.2 assists. And this is from somebody who could not care less about his stats. And when you watch him play, you can tell he's not going for these stats. It's just he's so efficient. And I don't mean just in the shooting aspect of it, even though he's 58% from the field right now, 35 from 3, 82 from the free throw line. But it's you rarely see somebody make the correct decision on every single play or just about every single play. And it's not just stuff that's right in front of them. It's not. A lot of players will just run the play, and if it's to this guy, it'll go to this guy. You'll see Nikola Jokic run an inverted pick and roll on the, let's say, right wing, and he'll just fling it to the left corner to somebody who's wide open. And the crazy part about it is all his teammates, because I've seen interviews a lot this week, they all just know they're getting the ball.
Yeah.
Like, it's different, like, most players, like let's say a big, for example, like, to reward the big thing, they're running the floor, he'll get the ball. Nikola Jokic's teammates just know they're getting the ball, and he trusts them whether they're cold right now, whether he's just this incredible decision maker.
Dude, and you mentioned his decision making, career low turnover percentage. 12.8 percentage of turnovers. Like, that's crazy. He's getting better. Like last year, he shot a career high 70% true shooting percentage. No wonder they won the championship. He's just a machine. I've never seen any and we don't talk enough about the murderer's row of defenders, like bigs he went through to win the championship. He went through Gobert, Anthony Davis, and Bam, and really didn't get slowed down by any of them. They all did their best. They tried to mix up coverages. They threw their bigs as help side defenders, and it wasn't a problem. Like, he's just insanely good. And you talked about his teammates knowing that they'll get the ball. It makes everything flow. Like, when if I set a good screen and I make the right read, like, I'm gonna get the ball if I'm open, and that just makes everything easier. Like, you guys are gonna be more willing screeners, more willing cutters. They're one of the best cutting teams, screening teams in the league, and it's so damn hard to defend them because they also have a ton of size and versatility. You get Aaron Gordon mismatched on a small guy, he's gonna bully him and abuse him. Jokic is gonna abuse anybody who guards him. Jamal Murray is a handful. KCP can shoot the three, good cutter, can finish. Michael Porter Jr., if he catches that shit's going up, and he's 6'10", and he's an elite shooter. Like, I don't know how you slow them down. They're insane.
It's impossible to scout them.
No,
because a lot of times, and we heard it a lot in the playoffs last year, just make Jokic a scorer. All right, he's gonna get 50. And at some point, you're gonna have to bring the double anyway. And like we said, he's gonna make the correct decision every time. And to your point of guys being more willing screeners and more willing cutters. It's so difficult to stay that engaged when you've come down 3 or 4 times and you haven't touched the ball and you know you're not touching the ball. You're not in this action, so this player is just not going to see you, or this player is trying to get his point, so he's not going to pass it to you or whatever. With Nikola Jokic, none of that exists. You can be the worst player on the team. He's going to look for you. He's going to find you. And like I said, all his teammates have already said, and Thomas Bryant specifically said, you can miss 10 shots in a row. Nikola Jokic is going to be right there looking for you for the 11th. And fully believe you're going to knock the 11th one down. And so, man, it's just that's impossible to guard. And so that's how they could end up being an outlier and winning a championship without having that great of a defense, because you just can't compete with that offense. You can't compete with that offense. And then even still, they do have the defenders. Peyton Watson, I think, one day is going to be on an all-defensive team. I don't know if it's first or second. He makes little mistakes here and there because he's young, but he's an incredible defender.
Yeah.
Incredible defender. Christian Brown, also giving him credit as a defender. Aaron Gordon, we know what he does defensively. KCP, we know what he does defensively. They have the defenders to be able to still sustain. It's just like Jamal Murray might not be great. I think Nikola Jokic, his reputation as a defender is a lot worse than his actual play as a defender.
Yeah.
He's actually a good defender in my eyes. I think it's just that a lot of times, we've mentioned this on the show before too, people's idea of a great defender now is the being able to guard 1 through 5, and that's still rare today. You don't. I think people only expect. I don't know why the expectation is for 7 footers to be able to do that, but within a team concept, Nikola Jokic uses his, because offensive IQ and defensive IQ, you have to know what the other side is doing to be able to compete. And so he uses his IQ knowing what a team is looking to do, and he's able to be in the right spot all the time on defense. He gets a lot of deflections. At some point in the season, he was leading the league in deflections. I don't know if that's still the case now, but I just feel like his appearance and his awkward movements just kind of get in the way of people realizing how good of a team defender he actually is, partially because he's not out there guarding guards on the perimeter. And I think that's going back to what I was saying before about the bigs being more skilled or not more skilled now. It's just, it's prettier when you have a big getting out there guarding a point guard and keeping up with him. It's cool. It's a highlight. And the same thing with blocking shots. It's still like it's a highlight, so you see it. But great team defense just doesn't get enough credit. And Nikola Jokic doesn't get enough credit for his ability as a team defender.
He's second on his team in steals. He's almost averaging a steal and a block per game. He's at 0.9 blocks per game right now. He's just incredible. You mentioned the deflections. Has gotten better moving laterally, and that's really the biggest key defensively as a big man. You got to be able to move laterally because you're going to see so many pick and rolls. Yeah. If you're either way, you're going to see a lot of pick and rolls. But if you can't move laterally, you're going to see even more. Right. And he's just really high IQ player, and he gets a lot of steals, gets them on the break. One of the best outlet passers of all time. Oh, yeah. He had like back-to-back touchdowns the other night. That was crazy. But yeah, they have so much talent. You know, we haven't even talked about like the young guys like Julian Strother. You mentioned Christian Braun and Peyton Watson, but Julian Strother is the guy they are high on. Zeke Naji's another guy they feel like is going to be pretty good moving forward. And they're all young guys who are active, long athletes who can run the floor. And we know how Denver's always, even going back to the George Karl days, they've always been a team that likes to get out and run, take advantage of the altitude. But even guys even vets like Reggie Jackson's had a really solid, strong year. Has played a lot, making up when Jamal's been injured and had some struggles there because of the injuries. But he's fit right in with them, and they're so fucking annoying.
And we have to mention Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Because he's had injuries this year, and it's been weird trying to find a rhythm. That's been something he's really struggled with for years now, just with injuries and coming back and trying to get acclimated again. But I don't think he gets talked about enough for the playoff riser he is.
Right.
And so I'm not taking his struggles as anything other than just he'll be ready when the playoffs come.
Yeah.
He's earned that from me since 2020. Like, he's giving you 40 if he needs to, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys that loves the big moment, loves to be tough, loves the big shot. They're so annoying. He's almost at a 50, 40, 90 for the season, and this might be considered a down year for him. He's just so good.
And could you imagine like being a team to where a player like Jamal Murray can, I guess, be considered a secret weapon in a sense, because you know what he's going to do in the playoffs, but you don't really see it in the regular season because of the injuries and coming back and all that. So just having a player like that on this team ready to go when you really need it, I don't know how you can not favor the Nuggets to win it again this year.
Yeah, man, they're going to be tough for any team. That there's no championship hangover with them so far.
Right.
Like the only thing that's really slowing them down is health.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can say that same thing about every team. And health is just going to be the deciding factor for teams like the Clippers and the Timberwolves. We just talked about them with Cat's injury, but like every team's kind of has that health question. Jamal Murray is the X factor if he can stay healthy. We've seen them win a championship with Michael Porter struggling and to play high effective basketball. But the rest of their team is so damn good that it might not matter.
Yeah, it's just, man, like, look out for the Nuggets again.
Yeah.
Like, the West is crazy, but like that team is still horrifying to me. Who is a team in the NBA that you think may surprise people in the playoffs?
We talked about this pre-show. I mean, but man, the Eastern Conference, I think the only team that I'm like, the Heat. I think if the Heat went on a run, it wouldn't really surprise anybody because they've earned that. The Pacers have been up and down. I don't really trust them anymore since they've kind of been figuring their own stuff out. I think Orlando with the right matchup, they could play with a lot of teams defensively. They really get after it. A lot of size, a lot of versatility. They're just really young, so I don't know how, like, past one round maybe, or like a tough out in the first round. I don't think any team's going to want to play them. Right now they're matched up. They're at the 5 spot matching up with the Knicks. That would be a fun matchup, a bloodbath, and I would watch that series. But for the East, I really can't really make a team. Like it's the Heat, Pacers, and the Magic, I would say. But the Heat, I don't think would surprise anybody. So I don't really think you can call anybody like a deep run surprising for anybody else. I think in the West, there's a number of teams that in the right round, in the right matchups, with the right amount of health. You talk about the Mavs. They're really talented. Luka and Kyrie are obviously, you don't have to say much about them. Their reputation precedes them, but they also have a lot of versatility now. They were getting into a real good groove with Derek Lively, the rookie center out of Duke. Daniel Gafford's been a really fun acquisition for them. PJ Washington's been nice for them. They're kind of figuring their rotation out and figuring out their consistency, but they've got a lot of versatility, and those teams that have the star power, have the shooting, have the versatility, can usually match up pretty well with a lot of teams. And we've seen Dallas make a run before, so I wouldn't be surprised by them. But I want to go for the underdogs right now. The team I don't feel like anybody's really talking about, that I would not be surprised if they won one round and pushed another team to the second round, is the New Orleans Pelicans. They've quietly had a really strong year. They're currently standing in the 5th seed, 2 games up on the 6th seeded Suns. They've figured some stuff out with Zion handling the ball more. CJ is a bucket in the playoffs. He's not afraid of the moment. Brandon Ingram's been banged up all year on and off, but he's a really, really talented player. They've got a lot of talent. Jordan Hawkins is a tough shot maker. He's won a championship in college. He's not afraid of the moment. Trey Murphy's back. He's fucking hooping. He's a great scorer. Herb Jones has had a phenomenal year. They've got talent, and they've got versatility too. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were an annoying out for some teams. But like, yeah, if you get them in the right matchup, they can really force some things on the other end and make it difficult for some teams. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won a round in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, 100%, especially with the way Brandon Ingram's been playing and with Zion. They've finally started to figure it out. And I think a lot of times we forget that their struggles in the past couple of years since they've had this build has been with health.
Yeah.
And so now with them all being back, we're starting to really see that, because they were, if I'm not mistaken, at some point last season, the 1 seed or 2 seed, something like that.
Yeah, early on.
Yeah, so they have a lot of talent in New Orleans. I don't want to ever sleep on them, but they just kind of get forgotten about. I think because a lot of times with Zion, the conversation, unfortunately, is just about something that really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
As far as his weight, even though he doesn't even, you watch these Pelicans games, Zion doesn't look like fat. It's kind of like the Shaq thing where like we call him fat, but like he's really not.
Right.
But the confidence has been about that instead of how good the team is. So they could end up surprising a lot of people. I'm glad you got, because even still, I wasn't thinking about them for whatever reason. But we did kind of touch a little bit on the team. I'm going with the Mavs.
Okay.
And it's not because we live in Dallas.
It is because of that.
No, this is what I noticed is this is Cowboy country. Like, there's Cowboy fans everywhere, but they love the Cowboys out here. Like,
it's crazy.
Love the Cowboys out here. But yeah, no. So I'm going with the Mavs because, first of all, the West is crazy. And I keep saying this, but just to put it in perspective, the Mavs are the 8th seed right now, and they're 8 games above 500. I don't know why the Western Conference always just does this to where they're just so strong, but there was a couple years where it wasn't the case. It's the case again. The Western Conference is insane. So you kind of already have no idea what's going to happen there. But then Luka Doncic right now is 0.2 assists and 1 rebound. No, 0.2 assists, 1 rebound, and 0.3 points away from averaging a 35-point triple-double. He's ridiculous in itself. The second best player on his team is Kyrie Irving. Who you don't even have to really get into how great of a player he is. And they have pieces that I think are kind of going under the radar right now. I could not wait for Daniel Gafford to get out of Washington and really be able to show what he can do defensively and on the glass. And now he goes to a Mavs team who's desperately needed that for years, even though now they do have Derek Lively who handles some of that stuff, and he's been incredible. Just as a lob threat, as a roller, all that stuff. The rest of his game is going to develop eventually, but rim protection, and like when they drafted him, I knew like, all right, this is going to be great because you already can't guard Luka regardless, but especially in pick and roll. Now you give him a pick and roll partner like that, it could get kind of dangerous. And again, I know they're the 8th seed, but they're 8 games above 500. We don't have to pretend they're not good. Like, this is a good team. You have Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively defensively. Maxi Kleber is an underrated defender. So the idea of them not having defenders and not being a good defensive team, I think that could be a little overstated. And I think that's the main thing that's going to surprise people, because Maxi Kleber is a guy you don't look at him and think he's a defender, but he is. He's going to give you trouble on the wings. Obviously, Daniel Gafford with the rim protection. And like we talked about with the Nuggets, like, you have an offensive player that good. I don't want to say the defense doesn't matter as much, but there's a lot of ground for you to make up for, even if their defense isn't that good or if the defense is struggling. And so I think depending on the matchup, the Mavs could go ahead and surprise some people.
Yeah, definitely. They have, we didn't get into Derek Jones Jr. and Dante Exum, who've had great defensive years.
Mm-hmm.
More lengthy defenders, versatile defenders. And they're, I think we're in the West, we've talked about the bloodbath, but, I think OKC's a really great young team, but
Mhm.
they're very young. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't, I think they're like, if they made a run to the finals, I would not be surprised.
Me either.
They're that good. I don't think they could get through Denver,
Right.
but anybody else, I could see OKC beating. But Dallas is, Dallas at the eighth seed. They're going to be, if this thing holds, they're only one game back of Phoenix
Mhm.
for the last spot out of the play-in. But if you're the 7 or 8 seed and you might match up with Minnesota or OKC, those are, we don't know how quick Cat comes back. We don't know how good he's going to be.
Mhm.
How good they're going to be with or without him. We don't know if he's going to have some rust
Yeah.
on his way back. We don't know how OKC is going to really respond. They didn't have expectations last year. This is their first year really being good. I mean, they've been phenomenal. 70% winning percentage right now. But we don't know. They have question marks too. They have rebounding issues. We've seen, Dallas has a lot of size and versatility. They could give. I would kill for a Luka Shea matchup for a series.
Oh, that would be insane.
Yeah, but I mean, Luka and Ant would be great too, and they both are similarly built with their size of their fives or defensive guys, and well, Gafford's an underrated defender, but I feel like Lively's overall the stronger defender, but they're more guard heavy on the offense, both teams, and that could be a matchup. Luke, the role players in the Mavs get hot for your series, they can absolutely win it. Upset some teams. They have the length. The kids is a really good defensive coach, and he gets and he knows how to get Luka going. So I would not be surprised with the Mavs at all, man.
That's the thing. The 2 seeds, like you mentioned, OKC and Minnesota, they are built for deep runs with the defenders they have, and with the length, and with just these great offensive young talents in SGA and Anthony Edwards. But they are, like you said, very young teams, and a lot of it isn't about what you can do physically once you get in the playoffs. It's kind of like a mental game.
Yeah.
Now, the Timberwolves do have Mike Conley, and he has a lot of playoff experience. Those Grizzlies teams didn't get that deep that often, though. So who knows where that goes? But the West is just crazy, and anything can happen. And I kind of can't wait for the playoffs to start, to be honest with you.
Me either. No, and we talked about Minnesota, but we like Mike Conley is that kind of veteran presence who can bring some of that experience, and they were also the team that pushed Denver the hardest. They took them to 6 games, and they gave them the most difficulty. So that's something to be said. I think I if I'm remembering correctly, that was in the first round last year. And who knows? Like I would like to see Minnesota get another shot at Denver, hopefully with a healthy Cat this year. But they're poised for it. They have versatility. You could make a case for like almost any Western Conference team.
It's such a good conference this year.
Like the Warriors are like the 10th seed, and
the Suns have just not been healthy this year, and we know what their big 3 is.
Yeah, the Lakers, they won the in-season tournament. They can defend. They have LeBron. They have Anthony Davis. If they won the play-in and took out one of the higher, if they took out Minnesota or OKC, we'd be surprised. But it's also like, okay, like it's not a full-blown surprise. It's not one of the biggest upsets of all time surprises.
And you know what? So not to cut you off. I'm gonna let you go back.
Go ahead.
I just don't want to leave out. We talk about LeBron and Anthony Davis, but you seen what D'Angelo Russell was doing lately? Also?
Yeah, cooking. We just had that show. We just talked to Jasmine about it. If he plays like that, he can win you a game.
Yeah, you go ahead and continue what you were saying.
No, man, it was just that. Just like every team has questions. Every team has talent in the West, and it's going to be a bloodbath all year round, the rest of the way. Just, I think the 10 teams are pretty much locked in, but they're going to be fighting to get out of it. And I'm really curious about the playoffs. I wish we could get there right away.
Yeah, like Eastern Conference, like you said, with us being Miami Heat fans and just basketball fans in general, obviously we're going to be invested and we're going to be watching those games. But I feel like it's, for me personally, I'm going to be watching the Eastern Conference games, just waiting for the Western Conference game to start out. Like it's such a good conference this year.
It's so good. And there's a lot of elite talent out west, a lot of young talent too. Like we look at the top half,
ready to have their playoff moments.
Man, I want SGA to get a shot, man. He's one of my favorite players to watch, and his composure, and Jalen Williams, both Jalen Williams, Chet, like they have a lot of talent, and I want to see how they perform under the bright lights.
Yeah, man, that brings us all the way back around. Like whether it's because there's a lot of romanticizing and disrespecting the older eras, you know what I mean? But I think every era had their great players and great moments, and I think we should respect all these eras, including the next era. And that next era is on the way. Whether we're talking about SGA and Chet, whether we're talking about Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, whether we're talking about like Chet Holmgren, Wemby, like, look, man, the NBA don't need a face in the next era. They never really had one singular one anyway, but the league is in great hands, and I can't wait to see how all these guys develop. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Playoff Foul. I'm Kenny. My social media, Kenny Spence NBA. I don't care if you follow me on there, though. Follow and subscribe to Playoff Foul wherever you consume podcasts. Frankie, where can they find you?
Frankie G _ FRANKYG _ on Twitter.
If you like the music throughout, that's my brother, Devin Spence. His TikTok and Instagram are BlackGlowMusic. You can also download his BDPs he has out on wherever you get music. And that being said, we'll see y'all next time.